All right, the Amazon Prime PBC era gets underway, or has got underway. Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. If this sets the standard, then we're in for a treat. This was a brilliant fight. Let's just talk about the background of this fight just before we get into the actual fight itself. So, Tszyu, it was announced he'd be fighting Keith Thurman, and I personally didn't like that fight. I thought that Keith Thurman, inactivity for many years now, not just over the last couple of years, but many years inactive, injuries, career at 147 pounds, all these factors, I thought, that's just, I don't want to see that, and nor do I think it should be on pay-per-view. Then, about a fortnight ago, it announces that Keith Thurman's injured, so he won't be fighting. Okay, fair enough. They bring in Fundora. Now, Fundora, I believe, was meant to be on the undercard. Now he's in the main event, and I thought, you know what? I've watched Fundora over the last few years, and I haven't done many videos on him. I don't think I've done any, actually. And I've always said, look, I've not really rated Fundora massively highly. He's it's very rare you see. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen it. A 6'5", 6'6", 80-inch reach, 154 pounder. It's not something you're used to seeing. Those dimensions you're used to seeing that at heavyweight, certainly not at 154 pounds. But he's not a fighter who uses that reach. He tends to fight up close. He gives his height away, and in his last fight, he suffered a KO loss. So I was thinking, okay, do you know what? I've not rated Fundora, but I actually prefer this fight to Thurman, because at least with Fundora, it's a completely different prospect altogether. You're training for Keith Thurman, a welterweight, coming up in weight, 5'7". Now with about a fortnight to go, that's flipped altogether. You're training for someone who is completely different dimensions, 6'6", 80-inch reach, and a big 154 pounder. So it is very different. Whereas with Fundora, everybody he fights is smaller than him, so it's nothing really new for him. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a good fight. It's one of those situations where the replacement is actually tougher than the original opponent. Some would argue that was the case when Joshua fought Ruiz. I was meant to be fighting Jarrell Miller, ended up fighting Ruiz, he took it out. So a lot of people would say, well, that's an example where the replacement is actually tougher than the original opponent. Now, this fight got underway, and I thought Tszyu looked very good, very sharp early on. And Fundora is someone who, he normally has a high punch output. He normally sets the tempo quite fast, and he normally brings it up close. He wasn't doing that at the start. He was still getting countered a bit, and he was still getting his head rocked back. And by the end of the second round, I mean, this is when the fight we really started seeing red in this fight. You'll know what I mean in a sec. Fundora, his nose was just bleeding profusely, and it was actually going into his mouth because he was taking a lot of shots from Tszyu. Tszyu was very sharp, very accurate. But at the back end of round 2, I had to kind of stop and look, because they obviously showed a replay at the end of round 3, because Tszyu went back to the corner. And the first thing you notice at the end of the second round, and by the way, Tszyu won those 2 rounds very easily, you notice Fundora is bleeding. And you think, oh God, that's a bad, it's like a tap almost, the nose. And then you look at the corner of Tszyu and you're like, whoa, hang on a minute. Where's all this blood coming from? Because Tszyu was bleeding profusely from the top of his head. And you're like, where did that happen? There was no clash of heads. And you go back and you look at the end of round 2 and you're like, what the hell happened there? Because it just looks like Tszyu kind of bores in but lands kind of in the tummy area of Fundora. Then they show a replay of it at the end of round number 3, and you see the Fundora is kind of thrown with the right, but Tszyu bores in, and his elbow on his left is there, and Tszyu just smack from the top of his head into the elbow, instantly opened the cut. I mean, this thing was bleeding profusely. And it was so bad that in round number 3, well, actually, as soon as the referee brought them out for round number 3, he brought the doctor straight over, and the doctor was kind of like, look, just let it go, because if he stopped it now, it would be a no decision. Nobody really wanted that. But you could see instantly that the blood that was flowing, they said it wasn't flowing into the eyes, the doctor anyway, and you were like, BS, because you could see instantly that, well, obviously you could see, Tszyu certainly couldn't, because it was flowing right into the eyes. Some people would be like, did that cut affect him? Did it really? 110% that cut affected Tszyu. And there's no, 110% that cut affected him. And you could see he was struggling with his vision because it was all flowing into his eyes. So Fundora started putting his foot on the gas in round number 3. Started actually fighting on the outside, which is something that we're not used to seeing from him. Started throwing jabs, throwing right hands, and he was landing a lot on Tszyu. He won round number 3. A good example of how bad this was in terms of the blood. At the end of the fourth round, with about 20 seconds to go, Fundora lands nothing right hand. It was just a little, like the right hand. Whatever way the camera was centered in the ring, all you see is just this. The camera is there with both guys, and this big splats of blood go onto the camera, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, what must that be like for the referee, and what must that be like in the corner for these guys? Because it was just blood flowing everywhere in this fight. And often when you know the result of a fight, I watch this fight on Daily Motion. Often when you know the result of a fight, it does, I don't want to say it takes away, but you kind of watch it knowing that, especially when it's, it's going to the decision, you kind of know, right, there'll be drama, but it's drama that you're almost expecting. Watching this fight, I was just like jaw dropped watching it. I was like, give me more. Even though I knew the result, I was like, this fight is amazing. Just seeing everything and the way both guys, just as soon as both guys saw red, really, because Fundora was bashed up as well in this fight. He was bleeding profusely as well. Once both guys saw red, it was just like, right, it's on. Tremendously entertaining. Actually, Tszyu did come back into it in kind of the mid round. He had a few moments of success, but then it was just more Fundora. It really was. Fundora then started to take over. For every shot Tszyu gave, Fundora had something in retaliation, and he had more in retaliation. He really did. It was a fantastic performance by both guys. Fundora, the commentators were saying this, and I like the way they kept more. Was it Mauro Ranallo? They kind of kept the old Showtime crew and brought them. Well, obviously there were some people from Showtime. We're not too upset to see the end of them. But, Ranallo, Abner Mares, people like that, Joe Goosen doing the score. And I quite like it. I like the American teams are normally quite good. They're normally very good with the broadcast team. And I like Mauro Ranallo. I think is how you say that guy's name. Mamma mia. I like that guy. I like him on commentary. They were kind of alluding to the fact that in his last fight, Fundora was stopped. And obviously it's not a nice thing when that happens, and obviously he was knocked out. That's made him more cognizant of his defense, and it's actually almost in a way it's kind of given him the kick up the arse to basically say, I'm 6'6", I've got an 80-inch reach. Why the hell am I not using it? He was using it in this fight, and it paid dividends. And we get to again, great fight. Got to the end of the 12th round. Lots of shots went in. Both guys are going to be feeling that fight, definitely. Neither guy was really, to my knowledge, neither guy was seriously buzzed in the fight. Maybe Fundora, a couple of stages in round number 1 and 2, you could say, okay, he felt those shots, but there was never any really danger there by both guys. Get to the end of the fight, and for my money, Fundora won this fight. He won it, by a decent margin. Like, it wasn't a whitewash or anything like that, a landslide win, but it was about an 8-4 type fight. Somehow, when Jimmy Lennon Jr. announced the scorecards, he announced it was a split decision. I certainly couldn't make a case for Tszyu winning this fight. I really couldn't. And the fact of the matter is that one of the judges scored it 8-4 in favour of Tszyu. Again, I couldn't make a case for Tszyu. I could make a case for him winning 4 rounds, maybe. Maybe at a push, 5 rounds, in which case you'd say it's a reasonably close fight, but that's at a push, 5 rounds. To give him 8 rounds, I don't know what he was watching. I really don't. It should have been unanimous for Fundora. He now picks up the WBC, which was vacant, and the WBO title, which he's now taken off Tszyu. He's now unified champion at 154 pounds. Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, there on the names of both guys. Spence was there, Crawford was mentioned. I believe there is a rematch in place for this fight, and to be honest with you, I would love to see it run back. You could, and again, you're right to do that. You could make the case that maybe the fight wouldn't have been as entertaining, and Tszyu probably would have been a little bit more in control. It was accidental, it wasn't intentional under no stretch of the imagination. The elbow, had that not happened, we maybe would have had a more conclusive fight in a sense of Tszyu. Hope I didn't say key term in there. In a sense of Tszyu winning, and yeah, you could definitely make that argument. But for what we got, it was entertaining, and I genuinely think if we see these guys run it back, which I think they will do, we're going to have another entertaining fight again. And credit to Fundora, they announced that him and his sister Gabriella, who I've never even heard of, but apparently she's a champion at flyweight, they are now the first brother and sister kind of dual actors world champion, for want of a better word. So congratulations to them. Fundora is a fighter who, again, I will hold my hands up, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I've not really rated, but goddamn did he prove me wrong in this fight. He really truly did. It was I enjoyed this card. I've seen a couple of the undercard fights. Was I wrong about Rowley? No, he got the living crap beat out of him. Lara, I thought that could have been a banana skin, but I'll talk more about that on Review of the Week this evening when I get around to recording that. And obviously I might actually do a bit of a. I might do a watch along. I'm so looking forward to this Sky card tonight, which is something I've not said in a long time. Me looking forward to a boxer show. I mean, I know it's an Easter miracle. I'm so looking forward to it that I might even do a watch along. Who knows? But that's my thoughts on the Tszyu Fundora fight. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. If you can get, I found it on Daily Motion, and I would implore anyone to go and watch it because it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. I will talk to you later. Peace.